call them just messaging mistakes. I see this all the time, whether they're starting out or they're large brands. You see this through and through, and there's kind of four big ones. And the first one is one of the biggest ones people make, and it's such a massive turnoff too. And it's what I call being a me monster. And one of my favorite comedians, Hersh, maybe you know him, Brian Regan. Have you heard that?
Oh yeah, I know Brian.
Yeah. Okay, Brian Regan, great guy, hilarious comedian. But he has this bit where he talks about how he hates to go to cocktail parties and dinner parties because he says inevitably he gets cornered by the guy that's the me monster, the guy that's pounding his chest and saying, oh, my expensive watch, the expensive travel, I just went on the trip, I have my second house and blah blah blah. He's just bragging about himself all the time.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry's seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about.
Yes.
Your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh Rephun.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
Who's in the hot seat today at the Yes Brand Podcast? It's Parker Nash. By the way, if I had a choice of a name to choose, I didn't want Hersh anymore. I was given the ability to shed the Rephun, although I'm very proud of my name. If I had an easier, catchier, cooler name, it would be Parker Nash. And, but that would be my choice. But anyway, the real Parker Nash is here today. He's a brand messaging and a marketing expert and 11-year veteran of Nike. And so we have the footwear business in common. We have the messaging and marketing in common, working with clients, working with people, and trying to help mission-driven businesses in Parker's case. And so lots of fun today. Parker Nash, welcome to Yes Brand.
Great intro. Thanks for the compliment on the name. And thanks for having me.
How did you choose that name, by the way?
I don't know. We have to call my parents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This isn't my Hollywood name. Yeah, no.
Right,
no.
Your stage name.
Yeah, my stage name. Thank you. Yes,
Your stage name.
Yeah, it was bequeathed to me. Right.
I'm a weatherman. My name is Hurricane Sampson, and parents just named me Hurricane. I don't know what happened. I just happened to go into meteorology. And okay, well. What I do want to know is, though, how did you get into this field of marketing messaging?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I spent a little over 11 years or so working at Nike. And through that process, I mean, that is just an incredible experience. And it was one of those things where you realize, looking back, just how fortunate I was to be involved in that, because I got a front row seat day in, day out to see how some of the greatest branding, marketing, product creation experts in the world, designers, go about creating a product and a business that people don't just buy from, but they absolutely are obsessed with. They're diehard fans, right? I mean, in the footwear world, there's a term for that, which is they call them sneakerheads, right? They're so passionate about their products that it's just taken to this another level. And so through that process, what I just started to slowly realize, and emphasis on the slow, because it apparently took me 11 years or so to finally catch on to this. But
right.
What you look at things at what Nike and brands like Nike do is, and Hersh, I'd love your thoughts and opinions on this too, knowing you're part of this world of, when you're on the inside or on the outside looking in, a lot of people think, well, Nike's successful because they spend billions of dollars and they have all these endless resources and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, yes, now that is true, but also it's having billions of dollars also could just be a quick way to just burn a bunch of cash, right? So It's not exactly the end all be all solution to everything. But as I was working through, I started to realize, oh, what makes Nike and brands like Nike successful are a handful of principles that you start to realize, like, oh, any brand and business can do this and should do this. And that's just through that process, going through that of, oh yeah, it's getting really super clear on customer message clarity, having the right assets, marketing assets to engage your brand, and putting a system in place. We start to realize that's a pretty simple stage and process they go through. Is I started to just kind of look out there outside the Nike bubble and started realizing, gosh dang it, there's a lot of cool businesses with great products and services that I can just tell they haven't dialed in their customers. They haven't dialed in their message. They aren't doing these things that are the process, the steps that you do day in, day out at Nike. And that's slowly what started leading me to what I'm doing now.
Yeah. And I think there's also a sense that, when Nike started, it wasn't Nike. When Apple started, it wasn't Apple. Even when Disney started, it wasn't Disney. So it's like, we have to get out of the mindset. I'm a big believer that, and it's taken me a long time to even shift my mindset about it, that, a lot of it has to do with how we see our brand.
Mm-hmm.
Do we believe our brand could be something meaningful to a lot of people? Or do we feel, look, there's very few people that will like it, or we just want to get by? The mindset of kind of fearlessness about, the audacity almost is a large part of it, and I think that in the case of Phil Knight and the people who started Nike, I think there was a sense of, if you read the book, if you read Shoe Dog, Phil's book, there's this sense of, okay, we're going to screw up. We're about to screw up. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going with my gut. My dad thinks I'm crazy. It's like all these things that we can brush off as, not really consequential. But the fact is that could be the difference between making it and not. The audacity to go to Korea or Japan in a time when people weren't looking overseas to start their business, just stuff like that. And
yeah,
and it doesn't mean that every company's going to become $1 billion brand,
right.
But the idea that we can charge forth, and not hold ourselves back is part of the mystique of why that brand has sustained itself, and brands like it, and why we almost idealize a brand, which becomes a problem for the brand too. We idealize it. We think, oh, just like we would look at a movie star or a singer, or, you'd look at Elvis, or you'd look at Lady Gaga, and you'd want to think, oh, they're perfect. They're an ideal. And it's not. But that doesn't mean they aren't to be admired.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you're really tapping into, which is exactly right about one of the things that made Nike from day one, and just why they become so successful, is the courage to be different. Like you just said, going to Korea and overseas to go start setting up some processes and stuff like that. I mean, to this day, still that is a through line that is so important to Nike, which is being different. And in a world in which we all live in now, where it's so noisy, gosh dang, I think that is just one of the most important things for us to all do as business owners and entrepreneurs, is figuring out your uniqueness. Why are you different? How can you communicate that? And oftentimes that's through those personal stories, your background, your experience, and making sure people understand and know that clearly is such a key thing. But yeah, I mean, that's what Nike has never been afraid to, is not shy away from controversy and be a willingness to being different.
Well, let's talk about that in terms of other brands.
Yeah.
The kinds of clients you work with, or our listeners who are, business owners, entrepreneurs, on a number of, sizes. There are phases, as to growth. And so some are just starting out, some are in another level of growth, but we're always trying to get to the next level. Sometimes brands feel like they're being ignored. Is there a reason, in your opinion, why their audience isn't paying attention to them?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, this is what I see day in, day out. And like you're saying, I see these same mistakes. I call them just messaging mistakes. I see this all the time, whether they're starting out or they're large brands. You see this through and through, and there's kind of four big ones. And the first one is one of the biggest ones people make, and it's such a massive turnoff too. And it's what I call being a me monster.
Mm.
And one of my favorite comedians, Hersh, maybe you know him, Brian Regan. Have you heard that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know Brian.
Yeah. Okay. Brian Regan, great guy, hilarious comedian. But he has this bit where he talks about how he hates to go to cocktail parties and dinner parties because he says inevitably he gets cornered by the guy that's the me monster, the guy that's pounding his chest and saying, oh, my expensive watch, the expensive travel, I just went on the trip, I have my second house and blah blah blah. He's just bragging about himself all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing this justice, of course. You got to check out Brian to see how he delivers it. But he goes, that's why I wish I was one of the 11 men that walked on the moon, because no matter what, I would have the ultimate trump card. I'd be able to say, oh, that's interesting. That reminds me of a time I walked on the moon. Always be able to, throw that card down and defeat the me monster. But that's what so many businesses do, is they think they have to tell a story, and the story is about them and all their accomplishments and what they've done. And it's like, you know what that sounds like? The me monster, me.
Yeah.
And people are just like, they don't want to be around that guy that's bragging and showing off all the time. It's a huge turnoff.
Yeah.
So that is one of the biggest problems I see, is the me monster syndrome. Two, another one I see all the time, and this is the worst probably in tech, but you see this a lot other places too, is just jargon and confusing language, right?
Yeah.
Is like I said, the tech dork talk, right? Of the acronyms that only they know. And this really comes down to curse of knowledge, which is we forget that our customers and clients and people, our prospects, they don't know what we know. So we have to use their language and talk about our business the way they would talk about, the way our customers would talk about our business.
Yeah.
So jargon and confusing language. The next one I see all the time too is trying to be everything to everyone, which goes back to the old saying of a friend to everyone is a friend to no one, right?
Right. Yeah.
Attention spans are so short. Squirrel brain is a real deal thing that we all have.
Yeah.
So if people come across you, whether it's your website or it's in person, if they can't understand within a handful of seconds, if they don't know if this business is there to help them within a handful of seconds, they're gone. So we've got to be really clear on who specifically we want to attract and who we do not want to attract. And going back to Nike, a great example of this was from a handful of years ago. Maybe you remember this campaign, but I think it was 2018. Colin Kaepernick, quarterback for the Niners, gets blackballed, gets pushed out of NFL, and he, for the whole taking a knee thing, don't really care which way you fall politically or your opinions on that. Doesn't really matter. But anyways, Nike comes out with this campaign. And the whole campaign was basically saying, be willing to stand up for something, even if it means sacrificing everything.
Right.
And it featured Colin Kaepernick. Of course, people went berserk, cue the burning shoes and jerseys and stuff, right? Wall Street's going, oh my gosh, this is a huge mistake by Nike. It's so, they're gonna tank their sales, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But what Nike knew that the Wall Street analysts did not know was Nike knew who their customers were. They knew what their customers' values were. And more importantly, when they communicated that they espoused the same values as their customers, they created a stronger bond. Yeah. What was great about that, so one, on the flip side, you get on the one side, you get a stronger bond with their customers. But on the other side, what it also did is it pushed away the people that were not really their best customers in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So no longer do they have to really try to, hey, are these the right people to attract? No, they've already self-selected out now, right? They're going to go find some other people. So we can't be even a company as big as Nike, which appeals to billions of people, even they say no to people. So we need to apply that to our businesses as well too.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a lot of great points in what you said. The fact is that we think that way also about unsubscribes. You know, we're worried
Mhm.
with our mailing list. Oh,
Yeah.
we hope they don't unsubscribe. I hope I don't say anything that makes them unsubscribe. Well, if they unsubscribe, chances are they were not going to buy from you. And
Yep.
if you have a list, you have to teach them to buy from you. Yes, you want to be entertaining. I do a lot of that, trying to entertain an audience that already exists, right?
Mhm.
But you can't be afraid of your audience. And
Yep.
even a company that's $1 billion company, a publicly held company, has to appeal to their audience.
Mhm.
So that often will mean taking a stand on an issue. And that's the way it goes. Now, some brands don't have to take a stand on an issue because the issue is completely irrelevant to them. And I don't think they need to put their nose into every issue. And, what
Exactly.
part of what I did when I had my boutique kind of footwear, marketing agency was that we would work with brands to find them the right purpose partners, find them
Yep.
the right causes to align with, find them the right nonprofits to work with. So that was because they had an audience that expected a certain thing. This would
Yeah.
make sense for them to partner with this person. But values-based business is the world that we live in, and I'm glad. I'm glad that we care about that people
Yeah.
care about something.
Yeah.
And some brands will have views that differ from an individual that likes the product.
Yep.
And hopefully you find a balance. If they're doing something corporate wise that is reprehensible to you and you boycott them, or you say, I'm not going to use that product anymore, that should be a consequence because that's reality.
Mhm.
The reality is that the world is a messy place.
Mhm.
This isn't the 1950s where we try to pretend that everything is, clean and
Yeah.
crisp and not.
Pleasantville.
Yeah, Pleasantville. Have you
Yeah.
seen that show, Hello Tomorrow?
No, I'm not.
It's on Apple, I believe,
Okay.
with Billy Crudup
Okay.
and a really great cast, Hank
Yeah.
Azaria. And the idea is
Nice.
it's set in the future, but
Uh,
it looks like the 50s, and they're selling condos on the moon. And
funny.
and the idea is that, everybody when the show starts believes there's really condos on the moon, but spoiler alert. I don't know that there's such a thing as a spoiler alert for a show like Hello Tomorrow. It's not really a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the pilot episode, if there's a spoiler in the pilot episode, I don't think it's a spoiler. But basically, they are kind of hosing people with the best of intentions. Let's put it that way. They're hopeful, but they're overselling themselves, and they're basically not able to deliver on the promise that they're promising. But the idea of it being in a 50s like environment is perfect, because
Yeah.
that was a gullible, what we associate with a gullibility.
Mhm.
And now I think we're gullible. We have gullibility on the one hand. We have wishfulness on the other side. We have delusion. We've got every kind of imagination in our experience that we could possibly have. Um, Based on what the world's like today, Parker, first of all, I want to know how you transitioned into starting your own agency and
Mhm.
what kind of clients you want to work with, but also work in there maybe what this moment in time is like for marketers.
Mhm. Yeah. So first question was, how did I transition?
Yeah.
Yeah. That just goes back to, like I was saying, I was at Nike, and I just was starting to tune into, oh yeah, these are the steps, the process in which Nike goes about marketing and branding and creating product and all that kind of stuff. And I just started to realize, oh, these are steps all businesses can and must take. And as I started to look outside, I just saw, oh, I'm seeing businesses that aren't doing these properly. And it really started actually with, I just started doing this on the side as I was working at Nike. And from frankly, because I was just bored and I was like, I'm ready
Yeah.
to go try something different.
Well,
And
what were you, Parker? What were you working on at Nike? Because they have a vast
it's huge. Yeah.
network of, I've done some stuff for them, but they have numerous departments and
Yeah. Yeah.
categories.
Yeah. So the last place I mean, I've jumped around quite a bit, but the last place I was actually in product apparel creation in men's sportswear. So it's like you're saying, so many categories, so many geographies. So
Right.
you get down to the most niche thing ever because it's still a huge business.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but through that, like I said, just realized, I wanted to. I actually had some friends that here in Portland, Oregon, had a furniture business, and what I was realizing, like, man, these guys' store, the product they have in their store is unreal. They were basically looking for anything that wasn't your cookie cutter furniture that
Mhm.
you'd find at Crate and Barrel and whatever. And so they imported stuff from Southeast Asia, India, South America, Latin America, all these, they were looking for unique woods, unique styles, that kind of stuff. And as I was going to their store, I'm looking at this, I'm like, my gosh, this stuff's incredible. But when you actually get to their website and the digital presence, I was like, this is all being lost. None of this is being told. None of this is being explained properly. And so that's where I said, hey guys, let me come in. We're going to do a couple things. We're going to get you guys really zeroed in on who specifically your customer is. Then we're going to craft a really strong story and message around what you're bringing to the table, why you guys are better, why you're unique and different than the other options out there, so people could see and understand the value of the product that we're bringing in. And so we did this over a summer. Website, messaging, all that kind of stuff, relaunched it. And within the first week of them launching their site again, one of my buddies texted me and he goes, I can't believe this, but we just sold a coffee table on our website. And before that, they'd only ever sold anything through foot traffic through their store. And that's when I was like, oh, shoot. That was insanely rewarding and satisfying and fun. And that kind of lit the fire of, okay, how am I going to do more of this?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's when I just kind of slowly started going through the process of, all right, how else can I make this happen? And then over a year or more or so, slowly working through that, building up clients, figuring out which ones I like, which ones I don't like, what are the right types of businesses for me. I got to the point where it was all right, I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out. If I'm going to do this, I got to go make this leap. And, like you, Hersh, I have a kid, I got a 4-year-old daughter, I got a family, mortgage. So it wasn't I'm a single guy on my own, I can just go make the leap. It was more
Right.
thoughtful in terms of how am I
Yeah.
going to do this? And so, yeah, I finally left kind of middle of COVID, essentially, is when I finally made that leap.
Oh, wow. And that's a bold time to do it. But at the same time, a lot of people were in that mindset of
It opened so many
wanting to,
doors. It
yeah.
opened so many doors because no longer did you have to be, well, we have to hire somebody that's in our town. It's like, it didn't matter, right?
Right.
It's just go find anybody that's the best person to bring in to help you out.
What about categories like you had been in footwear and apparel
Mhm.
for so long, and probably, probably accessories and you've probably done everything.
Mhm.
But did that, you had the one client that had been a, furniture
Yep.
store. What kind of clients did you start taking on?
I've started to realize there's a couple groups of customers I really enjoy working with, and they all fall within a similar vein behind them, I suppose. One is business in the startup space. Often, many times they're tech related. And why I like them is because I love working with businesses that are innovators, visionary thinkers, and seeing a new world. And what's great about that, and a lot of what I do in terms of the messaging and the copywriting, the marketing that we're creating, is how do we actually communicate this properly so people understand the impact this is going to have in their lives? That's a huge problem that startups really have, is they are generally the product or service innovators. They're geniuses, they're scientists, they're engineers, whatever, right? But they are not, but they cannot detach themselves from the products they've created to be able to explain it properly to their end user, their consumers. And that's immediately where I can come in and help them out. So tech startup space is oftentimes something I love to work with. Obviously, because it just comes from that world. E-commerce is a place I love to help out too. oftentimes I have a client right now I'm working with, kind of actually overlaps the tech startup. I mean, it's not a tech startup. He has a physical product, but he's a product innovator. And how do you explain this properly? So that's always a ton of fun to do that. And then last but not least, I love working with coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs that really have a purpose and mission behind what they're doing, and showing them how can they actually implement these steps and processes that the Nike of the worlds do in terms of their marketing. How can they do the same thing? And for that, oftentimes what I have is a 90-day accelerator, where it's a cohort-based group where we take them in each week in 90 days. We walk them through the 3 stages that Nike does, and the 3 steps within each one of those stages. So getting super clear on your customer and your message, building out your key attraction assets, and then building out an attraction system to get people to you. So we do that with coaches and consultants and solopreneur types, and it's just an absolute blast to be able to show them how to do this and create this on their own.
That's the most fun part. A lot of people think of writers as solitary artisans, we go off and sit in a room, and we spend plenty of time alone, and we spend plenty of time, just kind of coming up with stuff. But we also love, most of us, interacting with the client. That's one of the reasons why I stayed in this business when I kind of fell into the advertising business. I realized that I loved working with filmmakers. That was a large part of my clientele in the very beginning. I liked working with people who had passion for a brand, people who had a mission, and all of that stuff is a huge part of what we do for them, is hearing them out. When you're working with coaches, for example, or entrepreneurs, solopreneur people that are building their brand largely, let's say, maybe around their personal brand.
Sure.
How do you go about coming up with language and point of view when it's really specific, like it's almost a person's point of view?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think a couple things that we try to do first within this is, first off, understanding who is their customer, right? And like oftentimes, I'd say a lot of coaches, consultants, entrepreneur types, they've fallen into that. It's everybody, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing is, okay, cool. Let's dial you in on that. Let's cut out some of the noise and get you really focused on who the heck that is. And there's actually way I do this is the acronym EFFPP. What I mean is experience, favorites, fans, profit, pain. So those 5 things to really help you identify who your ideal customer is if you're newish, that you're going to rely on your experience. Where do you have the most experience in terms of work? What field have you been in? What expertise? What industry have you been in? That's a great starting point of, hey, I've been in your field. I understand what you're doing. And here's what I can help you, right? So experience, favorites, fans, meaning who are your favorite clients to work with? If you have clients, if you have current or former clients, who are the ones that get you excited and thrilled to work with when you see them coming, booking on your calendar going, oh, this sounds like a really cool project, right? Who are your favorites? And then fans being of your clients, who are your biggest fans? Who refers you the most? Who gives you the best reviews and testimonials? Who's shouting your name from the rooftops on your behalf? And then the last 2, profit, pain. Profit, who produces the most revenue or profit for your business? And then last but not least, pain. What type of customers or clients feel the pain greatest that you solve, that your product or service solves? The reason we try to start with those pieces there is because what we're trying to do is identify themes or segments and get clear on, oh, this is the ideal customer right here. And sometimes it's a combination of multiple of those pieces, right? So then once you get that, then it's figuring out, okay, what is, to go into the messaging piece, what I like to think about is kind of 3 major things, which is promise, problem, picture. Promise being, what is the one big outcome that your customers or clients really want and desire that you promise you can deliver through your product or service. And again, that takes a little bit of thinking. It takes some reflecting back on past clients, past customers, but really dialing in on what is that number one thing that they're looking for. And that's really what we're doing here in terms of messaging. Is the best messaging is actually just repeating and saying back what our customers are already telling us, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In a really succinct and clear way. So promise to problem is, what's the problem that they're dealing with? Why can't they get that number one outcome? What's holding them back from getting that outcome that they desire? And that goes back to the old principle of, if you aren't talking about the problems your customers have, you don't exist, right? That's why we don't buy products and services.
Right.
We buy solutions to problems that we're dealing with. Yeah.
Right.
And that even where you're like, well, how does that work with a company like Nike? Well, some of their stuff's performance based. So literally I'm too slow or not strong enough or whatever, and that can help me out. But a lot of that is actually more of a status problem, right? People are buying coolness factor. And so there's always problems within all of this. But then the last piece there, and helping customers dive into what do we talk about, how we talk about this, is the picture of painting a picture of what life looks like after they work with us, but also consequently, what happens if they don't choose to work with us or buy our products and services? What negative consequences they experience? And that's one of the biggest things we have to overcome is the status quo bias of most of us don't want change, and change is inherently risky. So the way you do that is let them know, well, these are the consequences of inaction. So if you get those three things, the promise, the problem, the picture together, you have the foundation for words and a message that can actually resonate and cut through to your customers. And on that last point too, about the picture, really painting a picture is, so many people think, and this is kind of like, I have this with some of the clients that are more like the startup space where they're engineers or scientists or whatever. They're like, well, my clients are rational. They're logical thinkers. You're like, yes, but we're all still human. And this is a big thing to remember us, and why we need to paint a picture of what life looks like is because facts get forgotten, but feelings get remembered. So if we can get people to feel an emotion or what life's going to look like, good or bad, as it relates to how we help them, that's what ends up getting latching in and getting kind of hooked with our customers.
Right. And you know what? I like the attitude. I share the attitude about the kind of inertia, I'm guilty of it too. It's like habits and routines and dependable outcomes and low risk that appeals to most people. And so I'll have someone say, well, what if I don't do it? What happens if I don't do it? And my answer is always the same. Nothing will happen. You won't, the sky won't fall on you. Your building won't fall down. Your product line won't stop. Nothing will happen. And then I'll pause and I'll say it again. Nothing will happen. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
So, so nothing will change. I'm like, yes, exactly. Nothing will change. And, okay. So speaking of change, the world is constantly changing as the audience processes the stuff that we've talked about today. Is there one kind of piece of advice that you can give to business owners they want to make progress? They don't want to not have, I'm going to use like a triple negative. They don't want to not have nothing happen, but they are also looking at a world that's kind of a little bit in flux and a little bit unstable, a little bit that somewhat has a smidge of instability. Is there anything that you want to end on that gives the listener some direction for their brand as a rule in today's world?
Yeah, I mean, when in doubt, if you're thinking about, gosh, how do I cut through the noise? How do I create better marketing and a message that resonates? I will say this over and over and over again. When in doubt, clarity attracts, confusion repels. So look at everything that you're doing in your business and what you're saying, communicating, and talking about. Are you being clear, obvious, and simple? And are there any points in which you're being confusing? Because if you confuse your customers, you're going to be losing them immediately. And one of the best ways to do this is actually just, gosh, go show your website or what you're doing to people that know nothing about your business. Like literally pull your website up on your phone, show it to someone that doesn't know you, be like, hey, what does this company do? And they'll give you a really direct, honest answer. If they can nail it, great. You dump money on it because you got something that people understand. But I'm willing to bet a lot of people, for a lot of websites, for a lot of companies, it's confusing, and that's a problem. So get clear.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and
it worked for you,
yes, then
subscribe and leave a
yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yes.